That was a hard time in my life. I'll always remember it. For that white man, it's a terrible shame for him to be treating people like this. Because we are a people. We just need to be accepted.
A car out of walk. I pray this devil die and get every evil thing the Lord got to get. And listen, I know you look at us in the state we in right now. Come here, SHALAM. Come here, SHALAM. Come here, SHALAM. I know you look at us in the state we in right now. Black people on drugs, and we suffering and dying. And I know it seems like you can do whatever you want to this people. I know it seems like this, but the time for glorifying yourself is soon at an end.
Tonight is a history class. Brothers and sisters that's calling in online, if you have any questions, just say Salakia. Before you come with your questions, any brothers in the class got a question, you know, you just raise your hand. Tonight, we're going to talk about the Catholic Church, the history of this man that they call the Pope, the history and the legacy of the Catholic Church, and we're going to get into some particulars about what this visit that the Pope is making to America today, what it means and why it's so important. If you live on the East Coast, if you live in Washington, D.C., live in Philadelphia, hell, if you even live in New York and anywhere in between, you've seen the amount of security presence that's been beefed up for this Pope coming to visit here in America. You watch on the TV, you can't turn on no channels without seeing something about the Pope. Myself, I'm a sportsman. I like to watch ESPN. I turned on ESPN last night. They stopped the highlights to talk about the Pope. Good. You understand? And then the thing is that not many people, especially here in America, are Catholics anymore. And if not many people are Catholics, America is a land where you got freedom of religion, right? You can choose to be a Christian or Muslim or not have a God. You can be Catholic or atheist, any denomination of Christianity or whatever belief system you have. But why is it that everybody stops when this man called the Pope comes around? You understand? What do these terms, the Holy See, mean? And why do they call him the Holy Father? These are questions that you will not get the answers from but by the men of the Lord and the I.S.U.P.K. So today we're going to talk about the history of Pope Francis. But first, I want to start by talking about a man named Junipero Serra. If you watched any of the news coverage of the Pope, you see that yesterday, Pope Francis in Washington, D.C., canonized Junipero Serra, right? And in the Catholic Church, when you canonize someone, that means to make them holy, to make them a saint. You understand? The Catholic Church is a church full of idols. The religion of Catholicism is no different than all the ancient religions that existed in Babylon, that existed in Egypt, that existed in the Greek and the Roman days. If you're into Catholicism, you know that in the Catholic Church, there's a ton of different saints, what they call them. Different saints for different things. You need some money, you pray to Saint this. You understand? Somebody died, you get a candle of Saint Christopher and put candles next to him. You understand? If somebody's sick in your family, you pray to Saint Augustus. You understand? The religion of Catholicism is no different than all the idol worships that have existed on the earth before, right? All the lies that have been told in Christianity about the Bible, the birth of Jesus Christ on December 25th. You understand? Him being born of a woman that never had sex with a man. You know, Jesus Christ dying for everybody. All of the reason why a lot of people see connections between Christianity and the religions of ancient Egypt and the religions of ancient Babylon is because those connections are real. The Catholic Church and the Christian religion is just an updated version of ancient religions that have always existed on the earth. Right. Which is why all the stories about the figures in Christianity are based on figures that existed before Christianity. But there's a difference between the Bible and Christianity. The stories that we all grew up hearing and learning about the Bible and about the holidays that are celebrated like Easter and Christmas, you understand? Those stories have nothing to do with the Bible. The Bible in Jeremiah, the 10th chapter, tells you that celebrating Christmas is an evil holiday and is a wicked thing against the Lord. Christmas trees have nothing to do with the birth of Jesus Christ. In fact, if you read the Bible, Jesus Christ was born in the springtime. He was not born in the dead of winter. You understand? The celebration of a man's birth on December 25th goes all the way back to ancient Babylon with a man named Nimrod. And as you progress further after Nimrod, it was Horus in the Egyptian religion. After Horus in the Egyptian religion, it was Mithras in the Greek religion. You understand? All the religious institutions that exist today are based off of ancient religions. You understand? No sweat. The Catholic Church is just another arm of that. You understand? So back to Junipero Serra. Pope Francis canonized Junipero Serra, made him a saint, an idol, someone to be worshipped and to be praised as if he was a god. And a lot of people that know the history of the Catholic Church in America are outraged by Junipero Serra being named the idol, or being named a god or a saint in the Catholic Church. But here in the I.S.U.P.K, we are not surprised. And as we go through the history of this man and we talk about why the Pope came to America, why it's such a big deal, why everybody is so up in arms, you're going to understand that the Catholic Church as it exists today is no different than the Roman Empire as it existed thousands of years ago. And that's what the Bible tells us. But let's jump into Junipero Serra, all right? The other day on Wednesday, Pope Francis officially canonized Father Junipero Serra, thereby making Serra a Catholic saint. Serra founded several Catholic missions to convert Native Americans in 18th century Florida. So what does that mean? In the 1700s, this man, Junipero Serra, he was a priest in the Catholic Church. He traveled to the West Coast over there in what today is known as California. But during that time, that land was still controlled by Mexicans. It was still controlled by Native American Indians. It was not a land that the white man had power over, right? This man, Junipero Serra, when he got to the West Coast, he set up schools to convert Native Americans into becoming Catholic. Right now, the white man talks about him setting up these missions like Junipero Serra was a great man. Like the work he did in Catholicizing the Native American Indians was so kind and peaceful and loving. But if you do any history or any research on how Catholicism was put onto the Native American people, the history is that they murdered, raped, slaughtered, and then destroyed the culture of the Native American Indians. You understand? These schools that Junipero Serra set up in the West Coast were not schools like public. Okay, how can I put it? Anybody here known anybody that grew up in Catholic school? Anybody had parents that went to Catholic school? What was Catholic school known for that never happened in public school? Does anybody know?
Like, I think they used to teach them like Catholic Bible.
They taught stuff out the Catholic Bible, something other than that. How did they discipline children in the Catholic Church? Does anybody know? Yes. Young man. They beat them. The Catholic Church is famous for the nuns beating you. You get out of line, they smack your hand. They hit you across the face with the ruler. Like that's where that beating in school came from. It came from the Catholic Church. Well, imagine the Catholic Church before there was any police, before there was anybody that you could call on about abuse. You understand? Think of all the murder and rape and molestation that was done under the Catholic Church. Now let's go back to the 1700s when the white man is trying to establish a stronghold in Western America. You understand? The Catholic Church and these schools that were set up by Junipero Serra, first of all, they would capture Native Americans, enslave them. Then they had a policy, and you can look this up. In America, the policy for dealing with the Native Americans, they had a slogan. It was kill the Indian, save the man. Right? How did you kill the Indian and save the man? You had to take a child, take an Indian, and beat every ounce of what made them an Indian out of them until all you had left was a white man, was a man that you could fill with anything. It's much like the process the white man takes today when you go to the military. When the brother or sister goes to the military, they got to go through boot camp, right? And in boot camp, the white man do all type of strange things. It's one thing to just teach a man how to fight. You come into the I.S.U.P.K, you'll learn how to fight. You go in the Hebrew Academy, learn how to defend yourself. Learn how to kill if it come down to that. But you ain't got to be starved to death. You ain't got to be taken out into the wilderness and jog for 3 days and live in the dirt. You understand? You ain't got to crawl in the mud and get bullets shot at your head. You understand? You ain't got to watch videos about how to be a good American and get the history of America drilled down your throat and how to stand up and be a patriot and defend the freedoms of democracy. All those things that's done in the military is designed specifically to break a person down from who they've been their entire life and then rebuild them up to what the military needs them to be, to fight and die without thinking twice about it. Well, that is what the Catholic Church applied to the Native American Indians. You take a family, take a village of Native Indians, you get them in this boot camp. In this boot camp, you starve them, you deprive them, you kill them, you beat them, you ask them questions. They give the wrong answer, you beat them. You understand? You drill them on American history, drill them on Jesus Christ, drill them on them being savages and heathens being put to death. And if you a heathen, you're gonna go to hell when you die. If you a heathen, you don't know Jesus, that's why you're in slavery. That's why your people being murdered. That's why you die in smallpox. You understand? The white man would drill the Native American Indians about how evil they were, how savage they were, how God didn't love them, and that's why they died. And once they broke the Native Indians, then they would build them up about how to be good Catholics and how to love Jesus and how to love Saint Mary and how to pray to this idol if you need help in this situation. You understand? Not to mention the sexual abuse that was going on. The Catholic Church was famous for raping men, raping young boys, raping girls. You understand? A lot of them women that's nuns in the Catholic Church, they doing the same amount of raping as them male priests in the Catholic Church. It's unnatural for a man and a woman to want to go their entire life with having no sexual physical contact. You understand? Not that it doesn't happen, but it's rare. You mean to tell me there's an entire organization with nothing but men who don't have sex with women and women who don't have sex with men? You understand? The Roman Catholic Church has a legacy of homosexuality that is built into what it has always been, a continuation of the Roman Catholic society, the Roman society that was established in ancient times, all right? But continuing on with Junipero Serra and his schools that he started out, I'm gonna read an excerpt from an article about how the Native Indians are outraged over this man being canonized by the Catholic Church or being made a saint, being made a man that's worthy to be worshiped, all right? It says, hold on. I'm reading it from an excerpt out of a news article about Junipero Serra and why Native American Indians are outraged at Pope Francis for making him a saint. It says, one way to answer the question of whether Junipero Serra was really good for the Native Americans he purported to serve was how natives were treated on the missions themselves. The backlash against Serra began when historians began to look at birth and death records on the missions and discovered that more natives were dying under Serra's watch than being born. What does that mean? That the mortality rate or the death rate in these communities he set up was higher than the birth rate. So you had more people dying than you had people living. Everybody understand? It says the contemporary picture of the missions is less a bucolic Arcadia than a feudal labor camp. You understand? A bucolic Arcadia is like it's like a colonial phrase for like a oasis or a beautiful place. You always hear stories about how the West was wild, right? Wild, wild West, they killing and murdering. Well, bucolic Arcadia was like a safe haven. You understand? History portrays this man, Junipero Serra, like he established safe havens in the West for Native American Indians. But in actuality, it was more like a feudal slave camp. You understand? Feudalism. Does anybody know what feudalism is? Aria.
It's a system where you have like lords over the land, people that will work for them.
Feudalism was like an old plantation system from the Middle Ages, where you would have one man who was the lord over this land. Let's say I was the lord over 50 acres of land, right? And this means this is my land. I would hire people to come work this land. I mean, I hire one cat to plant corn, one cat to do to have sheep grazing, another cat to have cows, another man to train horses, right? My payment to them is allowing them to live on the land. Their payment to me is everything they produce. So under feudalism, I own 50 acres, I give you 5 acres. All day, every day for as long as you live on this land, you're a corn farmer. Every bit of corn you produce, you give to me, I make money off of it. You get to live on the land. That's what Junipero Serra set up in the West Coast. And he had Native American Indians living under feudalism, where he took their land, this land that belonged to the Native American Indians. You understand? This is land that they've been living on for centuries. He came and said, I claim this land in the name of the Holy Roman Catholic Church and the Pope. You now work for me. You understand? While the white man tried to paint him to be something wonderful and magnificent, in actuality, he was a slave master over the Native Indians. Let's read on some more. The contemporary picture of the missions is less a bucolic Arcadia than a feudal labor camp, with natives being beaten if they violated Catholic teachings or didn't work hard enough. And what does that sound like? What does that sound like? That sounds like slavery for black people in America. Right. It sounds like we suffered in the cotton fields and on the plantations in the South. If you didn't work hard enough, you got beat. If you didn't praise Jesus, you got beat. If you didn't want to serve the white man and bow down and worship his God, you got beat. I'm going to read on. It says the native, Sarah's defenders point out that no native was forced to convert to Catholicism and live on the mission if he or she didn't choose to. His critics point out that once someone chose to convert and live on the mission, soldiers would be sent after him if he tried to escape. What does that sound like? Same thing as slavery. I've been living on this land since forever. My father lived on this land. My father's father lived on this land. My father's father's father lived on this land. White people come all of a sudden and say, this is our land. Either you're going to bow down to us and get with us, or you got to leave this land. What am I going to say? It's my land. I'm not going any goddamn way. Well, if you say I'm not going anywhere, the white man considers you an employee. He considers you a servant. And if you try to leave, he's going to send the police after you. He's going to send bounty hunters to come capture you. He's going to send slave trackers to come grab you and bring you back. You understand? That is America in the South, pre-Civil War. That's America today. You're a black man in America. You got some children. The court do what? Put you on child support. Child support locks you into a system where you have to come up with a certain amount of money every month. Right. If you don't come up with that amount of money, or if you don't want to be a part of that system, you try to leave, they're going to send bounty hunters to come get you. They're going to send the U.S. Marshals to come get you. You understand? The system of slavery that we live in today is no different than what our ancestors went through. You understand? Junipero Serra is praised by the Catholic Church because he established what ended up being the takeover of Native American Indian California. You understand? People want to know, why did the Pope make this man an idol? I mean, why did the Pope raise this man up to the status of saint? Because the Pope today is no different than the Pope has always been for 2,000 years. You understand? The Pope is an emperor. You understand? The Pope is a ruler. People think the Roman Catholic Church is a church institution, right? They think it's a place of worship. But let me ask y'all a question. In America, there's supposed to be something called separation of church and state, right? Anybody ever heard of that? You always taught that in school, right? The government's supposed to be different from religion. It's a separation, because why? People believe in their God extremely. People will do extreme things in the name of their God, and government shouldn't be about extremists, right? Government should be about people making decisions that's based on what's best for the people. Well, why is it that when Pope Francis came to America, he went and stood before the U.S. Congress? How come he didn't go to the church and give a speech? How come he didn't just speak to the church and talk to the people about obeying the Catholic laws and being good servants of God and Jesus Christ? He didn't talk about that. Pope Francis went to the U.S. Congress and talked about immigration. You understand? Does that sound like a man? Does that sound like a church leader? Come talk to you about immigration? Come talk to you about foreign wars? He talked to the Congress about foreign wars, about what's going on with the Iran situation. Does that sound like a man that's concerned about the spiritual well-being of people? No. What does that sound like? A man gets up before the government and says, We need to do A, B, and C. Y'all wrong for doing E, F, and G. What does that sound like, Ariel? Sounds like a president. Better yet, sounds like a dictator. He ain't asking. He ain't asking the government, hey, man, y'all need to lighten up a little bit. He's condemning them. He's saying you wrong for this, and you better get it right. You understand? And what happens if they don't get it right? We're going to go into it tonight. We're going to go into the history of the Roman Catholic Church and the church's association with wars based on men that would not bow down to the Pope. You understand? We've been taught a lie in America, man. We've been lied about everything in America. You understand? And the chief seat of liars is in the Roman Catholic Church, because the Catholic Church has hijacked they hijacked the greatest cultural record. How can I put it? They hijacked the record of the greatest people that ever lived on the face of the earth.
Right.
You understand? They hijacked what belonged to the Native American Indians. I mean, what belonged to the children of Israel and claimed it to be for themselves. Everybody understand? I'm gonna read a little bit more on this. I'm gonna read a little bit more on Junipero Serra, right? Let me read on. It says, that's definitely not great, but there was no great options for Native Americans living in 18th century colonial California. Natives who weren't living on the missions were also getting failed in huge numbers by European disease. So guess what? If you didn't live in this Catholic safe haven, or if you didn't live in this slave labor camp, you was dying because the Europeans who had diseases. If you didn't live with the Catholics, then you had to deal with all the wild, wild west white men that was coming in. What do they call them? The
Cowboys.
Not the Cowboys. Before the Cowboys, what do they call all the people that came to California?
Talking about not like the pilgrims, right?
Not pilgrims. That's a name for them. It's like an expedition word. Ariel, you know it? It's like the Western frontier settlers. Everybody ever, when you was kids, this is how you tell how old some of y'all is in here. Anybody remember the game Oregon Trail?
Sir.
It's a little computer game. Y'all young, man. Nobody remember Oregon Trail. Yeah, but it was a little game when computers first started coming out. This was before computers got famous, right? There was a game called Oregon Trail. I remember being like 3rd grade. You get to go to the computer lab. They had a floppy disk back then. Games wasn't, you know what I'm saying? You had a computer, they put the floppy disk in there. Oregon Trail was a game that you could play that put you in the life of a family living in the Midwest that was trying to get to California. So in the game, you traveling, trying to get to the West, and you got to make decisions on different things that happen. Long story short, you know what I'm saying? During this time of the 1700s, a lot of people were leaving the East Coast. A lot of people were crossing the Mississippi River, and they was trying to settle the lands that was in the West, in California, in the Las Vegas, Nevada, in what's some states in between it? Colorado, right? So a lot of white people coming in the lands where the Native Indians had already been living. They hunting and living and surviving. Here come white people. With white people came disease, came murder, came rape, came them taking over your land, killing off your animals, right? So the article is saying that a lot of Native Indians didn't have a choice. You understand? A lot of Native Indians had no control over life or death if they didn't choose to live under the Catholic control, right?
Right.
You read a little bit more. Hold on, give me 1 second, y'all. I'm gonna pull up this video right quick that gives you an insight into what was going on those boarding schools, right? With the so-called white man. I'll play a clip from this video called "Our Spirits Don't Speak English: Indian Boarding School," right? You can go on YouTube and you can find this. And this, matter of fact, I watched this whole documentary. And it's a great documentary to show that what the Native American Indians went through here in America is no different than what our people went through under the so-called white man. The things the Native American Indians suffered is no different than what you and your ancestors suffered, right? We're gonna read this, we're gonna watch this video and see what this Native Indian man says about his memories and his experiences living, growing up and going to a white Catholic school, right? See if I can get the sound playing through the TV right quick. Y'all bear with me for a second, all right? Matter of fact, do me a favor, Ahmad. Or matter of fact, not Trooper not. If you could finish reading this paragraph. And I'm that. You can start the top paragraph while I try and get this together. Go ahead. Yeah, start at the Americans.
Americans living in the 18th century colonial California. Natives who weren't living on the missions were also getting felled in huge numbers by European disease. They were subject to Spanish violence and cruelty.
See, some Native Indians that didn't live in these Catholic slave camps, they were subjected to dying by the European diseases, and they were being conquered by the Spanish that were coming in and taking over Mexico, taking over California. Read on.
And some historians argue that the changes Spanish colonists brought to the local ecosystem by importing foreign animals and plants were so enormous that it was basically impossible for native Californians to continue their traditional lifestyle.
Now listen, the white man came, what'd he bring? He bring a bunch of animals with him that wasn't native in the land. What those animals do, they change the balance of nature. You understand? So you got buffaloes and wild animals that's roaming a certain area. You bring in a bunch of dogs. You bring in a bunch of pit bulls. You bring in a bunch of I don't know what the white man brought with him. You bring in cows from Europe that's different from the buffaloes that's roaming this land. They're gonna clash with one another. You're gonna upset the balance of things, and that's what happened to the Native Indians' land when the white man came. Read on.
In other words, the missions were just one arguably less terrible option among terrible options.
So there's a bunch of terrible options. There's nothing but terrible options. If you die under the hands of the Spanish that's coming to take over this place, if you die in the wilderness from starvation or by catching the white man's diseases, or you can settle for being a slave under the Catholics. You understand? Those of our people who wanted to just live, who just didn't want to die, what they do? They settled to be slaves under the Catholics. Everybody understand? Read on.
Contemporary native groups felt Serra tried to erase native culture.
Contemporary native groups, meaning Native Americans today, feel like Serra tried to destroy their culture. And they're correct, because the process of Catholicizing anybody is to get rid of their belief system, get rid of their way of life, get rid of their culture, and make the people that they're converting become Catholic. What is a part of being a Catholic? Part of the Catholic religion is worshiping white people. You cannot be a Catholic and not worship white people. Why? Because all of the saints in the Catholic Church are white people. You got white baby Jesus. You got white Mother Mary. You got white Caesar Borgia. That's what you get when you accept Catholicism. That's why everywhere around the world, people believe that Jesus was a white man. Right. Who made them believe Jesus was a white man? The Roman Catholic Church. Everybody understand? Read on.
To some of Serra's contemporary defenders, the fact that Serra tried to provide a humane form of colonial rule to natives is enough.
Now, for people who are for this man, the fact that he tried to be civil with the Native Indians is enough for them to praise him as a god. Hey, he didn't beat you. He wasn't, cutting your woman's belly open. He wasn't, cutting your head off. He wasn't chopping off your foot. He wasn't so bad, but he just beat you and stripped your culture out of you and made you lose every ounce of what made you you. He just made you forget your language and forget your culture and forget your ancestors and forget everything that made you who you are. But hey, at least he didn't kill you. At least he didn't work you to death. You understand? You see how evil the white man is? They have no compassion for anybody else but themselves. There's a heavy thing General Muhammad said on that tape when he made that white girl cry. He said, white people have no respect for the humanity of other people. You understand? And that is true, man. This white man is a monster. He is a beast. He is an animal. He does not respect anybody else's humanity. And the evidence of that is that in 2015, the Catholic Church just made this man a god. This man who we're reading about, who beat and whipped and enslaved Native Indians, they made him a god yesterday. Why? Because the same way the white man thought when this white man was colonizing these Native Indians is how they think today. Everybody understand? Go ahead.
They point out that he tried to advocate on natives' behalf to colonial soldiers and officials.
They said that he tried to advocate on the natives' behalf to the soldiers. You know what I'm saying? Don't kill these people. Don't murder them. They okay. But only if you bow down to him and accepted his white Jesus and his Catholicism. If you was an Indian that did not want to bow down, what did he say to the military? Go ahead and kill them. They ain't no good. They can't be of no use for me. Read on.
And that he was more concerned with the natives' well-being than his Spanish peers.
That he was more concerned with the natives' well-being than his Spanish peers. Now, let me ask y'all a question, right? I'm a white man, and we coming over to colonize this land, right? What danger are we in to the native people that's living here? We come with steel and guns and horses and armor and military equipment, and these people got bows and spears and cow skins. Who's in more of a position to be a threat?
Native Indians.
Native Indians. They're the ones that's being threatened because these people was militarily superior. The white man is saying this man Junipero Serra was great because he stuck up for the Native Indians and not the Spanish people. When the Spanish people had no threat of danger. Their lives wasn't on the line. You understand? But in the white man's eyes, see, he stuck up for these Native Indians. He didn't stick up for the Spanish. That makes him a great man. You understand? That's you know what that's like? That's like a warden of the prison standing up for the prisoners and not for the COs. We in a prison. Who's in more of a position to be murdered and killed and taken advantage of? The prisoners, right? Everybody got to worry about the prisoners' well-being. Why? Because the COs are the men with the locks and the keys and the handcuffs. They the ones that can beat you and not get beat. Now the warden stands up for the prisoners and say, hey man, we got to treat these prisoners better. Does that make him a great man? Does that make him honorable? Now, let's say all these prisoners are men that have never done nothing wrong. These prisoners are all innocent people. You understand? The warden is the head of this evil institution that done locked up all these innocent people. But because he stands up for the people that's in jail and says something nice about him, we supposed to make him a god. We supposed to worship him for being great. Like, that's the white man. Everybody understand? Read on. God.
But no one is arguing that Serra disagreed with the colonial project. To the contrary, his kindness towards natives was conditional on whether they accepted Catholicism and European-style living within the missions.
That's what I just said. Him sticking up for them was conditional based on whether or not they became Catholic. You didn't want to become Catholic? Man, kill him. He's savage. Who cares about him? They heathens anyway. And literally in the Catholic religion, they don't care about heathens. You don't accept their Jesus Christ. And here's what's heavy about the Catholic Church. And I'm going to get into it a little bit in the second hour when we go into the history of Catholicism. The Catholic Church converted people just like the Muslim mosque. If you would not bow down and say that you love the Mother Mary and she's the mother of heaven and her son Jesus Christ is God on earth and the Pope is his representative on earth, they put you to death in Catholicism. The Catholic Church spread around the world. If you did not accept the Catholic religion, you were put to death. Islam came along and did the exact same thing. If you did not accept Allah, say that Muhammad was his prophet, then you got put to death. You understand?
You would call it.
That's how it now. What are the two famous religions on the earth today? Christianity and Islam. Why? Because they both were spread the same exact way. You understand? These people that were called missions, they were not peaceful people. These Catholics were not peaceful. They did not come with love and kindness. They came with a military. They came with an army that murdered and slaughtered you unless you found God. You found the goodness of Christ and accepted white Jesus and white Mother Mary into your heart. Everybody understand? This man was no different. He did not care about the Native Indians. All he wanted was all he cared about was who's going to be a willing slave. Who would rather serve me than die? And if you would rather serve him than die, then he stuck up for it. Read on.
And that is at the heart of contemporary opposition to Junipero Serra.
That's what's at the heart to contemporary opposition. What's at the heart of people opposing this man was the fact that he was not a good man. The fact that all he did was enslave Native Indians and advocate for those that agreed to be his servants. But what the white man did to the Native Indians erased their history, erased their culture. You understand? There's a divide. Matter of fact, we're going to get into this video, and you're going to see that there was a divide in the Native American family structure because of how the white man separated the children from the adults. to where the adults who spoke the Native Indian language and remembered the culture and remembered what life was like before the white man had nothing in common with those who didn't.
My name is Andrew Windy Boy. I'm a Chippewa Cree. I did 2 boarding schools, one in Wapton Indian School in Wapton, North Dakota, and the other one is Flandreau Indian School in Flandreau, South Dakota. Mid-60s to early 70s took me to the boarding school where I wasn't allowed to talk my native tongue or practice my native ways. Numerous times they'd put on this big old white, big huge white cone, put on there, it says dunce. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know English. They put it on me, make me wear it all over. Kids would laugh at me. That and punish me for talking that. It was my first language. I didn't know any other language. So whenever I talk, it came out. Cree would come out, and whenever I talk, I get hit. I got hit so much I lost my tongue. The only thing I remember was my Indian name. Which is SKYPE, means old man eagle. That's the only Cree I knew. They beat me every day. They beat me. They cut off my hair. They made me kneel in front of the door where everybody come in. Everybody make fun of me when they come by me, rub my head and laugh at me because I was talking. They caught me talking. I hope someday somebody will hear me. I hope nobody has to go through this. We have to have our own language. Because what we do when we talk to our spirits, they don't understand English. That was a hard time in my life. I'll always remember it. For that white man, it's a terrible shame for him to be treating people like this. Because we are the people. We just need to be accepted.
We just saw a video from a Native American Indian talking about the horrors that he experienced in boarding school. You understand? Again, the name of the video is Our Spirits Don't Speak English, Indian Boarding School. Everybody understand? You understand? The white man terrorized the Native American Indians. You know what I'm saying? Tortured the Native American Indians. Committed cultural genocide on the Native American Indians. That's why the Native Indians don't have no identity today. We went over class last week about slavery, right? What did it say about the morality of a man? Morality of somebody is based on their self-worth. White man made the Native Indians to feel like they were nothing.
Right.
Like their lives didn't mean anything. That the only thing they could do to even have a bit of life was to accept white Jesus and bow down to white Mother Mary. And for these Native Indians who were taught those things, what this brother experienced is the reason why they died. I mean, the reason why they suffered, the reason why they commit suicide. You look at the Native American Indian population today, as little of us as it is. I'm a Gadite, I'm a Native American Indian, you understand? From the Lumbee tribe. From the little bit of us that there are left, we're dying number one than any demographic in America by suicide. Everybody understand that? Why are so many Native American Indians driven to kill themselves? Why are they driven to commit suicide? Why do they drink themselves till they develop liver failure at age 17, 18? You know how much you have to drink to have liver failure at 18 years old? That's what's happening to the Native American Indians, and it's a direct result of what the white man did to our people. But in 2015, Pope Francis, he makes this man a god in the Catholic Church. He raises this man up with all might and authority, and people are going to pray to this man. When what is his legacy? The cultural genocide of Native American Indians in the West Coast. Everybody understand?
When nowadays I work hard on the job, till I come cross still like I'm a criminal. Crime and get caught, it could be your first charge. Like, man, you ain't getting the minimum. It gon' dip, squat, 5 mile run, push, pull, sit on, goddamn, get strong. Looking at my baby, trying to keep them doing wrong. It's too long for they grown, I can't leave them on their own. They killed Daddy like he had a 30-day case. The news covering up the story, but they say it took me back to the time we lost Otis. Pretending these crackers, they gon' tell you something bogus. And I'm thinking like, damn, what you tell the kids? We try to